The morning sun rose slowly over the city's slums, scattering pale gold across rows of tin roofs patched with plastic sheets. The narrow lane still smelled faintly of damp earth and smoke from last night's fires. Stray dogs nosed through heaps of trash, searching for scraps. From a distance, the neighborhood looked like a forgotten island at the edge of a glittering city, a place the world had stopped seeing long ago. Lena adjusted the strap of her torn canvas bag and pushed a rickety handcart down the alley. The wheels squeaked with every turn. Bottles clinked inside, a familiar metallic symphony that echoed through the empty street. She moved carefully, barefoot except for one old sandal and one mismatched shoe. The early air was cold enough to sting her skin, but she had long stopped noticing. "Lena, you're up early again," called out an old woman from a doorway, her voice rough from years of smoke and hardship. Lena smiled faintly. "Good morning, Auntie Rafika. Gotta finish before school starts." The woman shook her head. "You work harder than half the people in this city, child. But tell me, does that school treat you right?" Lena just smiled again, not trusting herself to answer. She pushed the cart forward, her small frame leaning into it with practiced effort. The metal rattled louder as she turned onto the main road. Buses roared past, splashing muddy water onto her skirt. She didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the sidewalks. Plastic bottles, discarded cans, old newspapers. Each piece was worth a few coins, and every coin mattered. As she bent to pick up a crushed bottle, two boys on bicycles slowed beside her. "Hey, garbage girl," one of them shouted, laughing. "You missed a spot." The other pulled out his phone and started filming. "Smile, Lena. Maybe this one will go viral." Lena straightened slowly, holding the bottle tightly in her hand. "Please," she said quietly, "don't do that." But they only laughed louder. "What? We're just helping you become famous." She turned away and walked on, her pace quickening. Behind her, their laughter chased her down the street like an echo that wouldn't fade. By the time she reached the recycling depot, her throat felt tight. She handed her morning's collection to the supervisor, who weighed the bags and scribbled on a sheet. 42 rupees today," he said flatly, not looking at her. "Thank you, sir." She folded the crumpled bills into her pocket and began walking home. The sun had climbed higher now, and the city's real pulse had awakened. Cars honked impatiently. Street vendors shouted over each other. Children in clean uniforms passed by, holding hands with mothers who smelled of perfume. Lena watched them with a strange ache in her chest. Not envy exactly, but something close. She wanted to be one of them, to walk without being noticed, without being laughed at. Her home stood at the far end of the lane, a small room built from brick and rusted tin. Inside, her mother sat on a charpai, coughing into a rag. "You're back already?" her mother asked weakly. "Yes," Lena said, kneeling beside her. "I got enough for your medicine today." Her mother's hand trembled as she touched Lena's cheek. "You shouldn't have to do this. You're just a child." "I'm 16, Lena said softly. "That's old enough to take care of us." Her mother smiled sadly. "You always say that like you believe it." Lena helped her take the medicine, then packed her school books into a frayed bag. She smoothed her skirt as best she could and tied her hair with a red ribbon that had faded almost to white. As she walked to school, she passed the high walls of neighborhoods where flowers bloomed behind iron gates. A few children in pressed uniforms stepped out of parked cars, their laughter bright and careless. Lena lowered her gaze and walked faster. When she reached the school gate, the guard hesitated before letting her in. "You're late again," he said. "I know. I had to finish work first." He sighed. "Go quickly. The bell's about to ring." Inside, the hallways were already alive with chatter. Lena slipped into her classroom quietly, taking the seat near the window. A few students turned their heads immediately. "Look who finally showed up," whispered one girl, smirking. "Did you collect enough garbage to buy a pencil this time?" Another giggled. Maybe she found one in the trash. Lena opened her notebook, pretending not to hear. Her fingers trembled slightly as she wrote the date on the top of the page. During lunch, she sat alone under the staircase, eating a piece of dry bread wrapped in paper. She could hear laughter echoing from the canteen. She didn't look up when someone's shadow fell across her. "Why do you even come here?" said a boy's voice. "You think anyone wants to sit with a garbage picker?" Lena looked at him calmly. "Because I want to study. That's all." He snorted. "Study what?" "Trash management." The others burst out laughing. Lena stood up and quietly walked away. After school, she lingered near the notice board, pretending to check for updates. On the other side of the courtyard, a group of students surrounded a phone, laughing hysterically. She didn't need to see to know what it was. Another video. Another cruel joke. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay beside her mother, staring at the ceiling where moonlight filtered through cracks in the roof. She heard the faint hum of the city in the distance. Music, traffic, voices. A different world that never touched hers. Her mother stirred in her sleep, coughing again. Lena turned toward her, whispering, "Someday, I'll change everything. I'll make them see I'm not what they think I am." But morning came too soon. The next day was worse. Someone had printed a still from one of the videos, her bent over a trash bin, hair falling across her face, and taped on the classroom wall, written across it in bold marker were the words "Garbage Girl." The laughter was deafening. She tore it down silently and walked out. The teacher found her sitting alone on the back steps later. "Lena, is everything all right?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, miss." The teacher hesitated, then sighed. "You're a bright girl. Don't let people's words stop you. Understand?" "Yes, miss," Lena whispered, though she didn't believe it. When she returned home that evening, the power was out again. She lit a small oil lamp and began sorting through a new pile of recyclables. The smell of damp paper and rust filled the air. Her hands were raw from work, but she didn't stop. Every clang, every scrape, every piece of glass was a reminder of what she had to escape. Later that week, she overheard two of her classmates talking near the gate. "You know that girl, Lena? She smells like trash." "Yeah, and she actually lives in the slum behind the factory. I saw it once. It's disgusting. She should just drop out. People like her don't belong in our school." Lena froze behind the wall, her eyes burning. She wanted to shout, to tell them that they were wrong, that she worked harder than any of them ever would, but her voice wouldn't come. Instead, she walked away quietly, her fists clenched at her sides. That evening, as she walked home, the sky turned crimson with the setting sun. For a brief moment, the city looked beautiful, like a painting. But even in that beauty, she felt invisible. At the corner, she stopped by a small puddle and looked at her reflection. Dirt streaked her cheeks, and her ribbon had come loose. She touched her face lightly, whispering, "Why does everyone hate me for surviving?" A small boy from her neighborhood ran up, holding a broken toy car. "Lena, can you fix this?" She smiled faintly and knelt. "I can try." As she worked, the boy grinned. "My mom says you're a good girl. She says you help everyone." Lena's smile widened just a little. "Your mom's kind." That night, she helped her mother with dinner, boiled rice and a few lentils. As they ate, her mother said quietly, "I heard the neighbors talking. They say people at your school make fun of you." Lena's spoon paused midair. "It doesn't matter." "It does," her mother said softly. "But don't let them change who you are. You're more than what they call you." Lena nodded, though tears had already filled her eyes. After dinner, she went outside and sat on the steps. The air was cool, the stars faint behind the haze. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbled. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Tomorrow, she told herself, tomorrow will be better. But it wasn't. The next day, as she entered the classroom, the laughter started again. Someone whispered loudly, "Hey, garbage girl missed a spot outside." The words hit her like a slap. Her hands shook as she gripped her notebook. For a second, she thought she might cry, but she didn't. She stood still, staring at the floor until the laughter slowly faded. Then she walked to her seat without a word. That silence was stronger than any response she could have given, but inside her heart burned. She didn't know it yet, but that quiet fire, the one that refused to die even when the world mocked her, was about to change everything. And soon, a single night would turn the name Garbage Girl into something no one would ever forget. The sky had already turned the color of rust when Lena reached home. The alleys were quieter now, littered with the fading sounds of evening. Vendors packing up, mothers calling children inside, the hum of faraway radio playing an old song about love and loss. She balanced her books in one arm and pushed the creaky door open with the other. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of damp walls and boiled lentils. A single bulb flickered above, casting a pale circle of light over her mother's frail figure lying on a thin mattress. Her mother looked up and smiled weakly. "You're late, Beatty. Did they keep you again?" Lena shook her head, setting down her bag. "No, I just walked slow today." Her mother coughed, a deep, dry sound that echoed in the small room. Lena quickly poured water from a jug and held it to her lips. "Careful," she said softly. "You need to rest." Her mother drank a little, then wiped her mouth with the edge of her dupatta. "I'll be fine. You shouldn't worry about me so much." "But who else will, Mama?" Lena whispered, a faint smile playing on her lips. Her mother smiled too, though her eyes clouded with guilt. "You're too young for this. You should be thinking about your studies, your dreams, not my medicines." Lena sat beside her, folding her legs on the floor. "I am thinking about my dreams. That's why I'm doing all this." Her mother reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Lena's face. "And what dream is that?" Lena's eyes softened. "To become a nurse, so I can help people like you. So no one has to choose between food and medicine." Her mother's lips trembled into a smile. "You'll be a wonderful nurse, my love. You already have a healer's heart." But as she said it, her breathing turned shallow again, and she pressed a hand to her chest. Lena immediately reached for the small box on the shelf, the one that held a few blister packs of tablets, some half-used, some expired. She carefully picked one, helped her mother sit up, and gave it to her. They both knew the supply would run out in a few days. When her mother finally drifted into sleep, Lena sat quietly for a long time, watching her. The rhythmic wheeze of her breathing filled the silence. Outside, the city lights shimmered faintly beyond the curtain of smog. She looked at the few coins she had earned that day, lined up neatly on the wooden table. 42 rupees. Not enough for a full strip of medicine. Her fingers closed over the money. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself. "I'll collect more tomorrow." She walked to the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. It was old and foggy, the edges covered in rust, but it reflected enough. She could see her face, the dirt smudges, the tired eyes, the red mark with a bag strap always pressed against her shoulder. For a moment, she saw what others saw. A poor girl, a garbage picker, a face that people mocked. But then she leaned closer and whispered, as she always did, "Someday, they'll see me for who I am." The reflection stared back, silent but defiant. Every morning began before the sun. She rose quietly, so as not to wake her mother, and stepped into the cold dawn air with her cart. The streets were still empty except for the sound of crows and the distant horns of trucks. She worked quickly, her fingers numb as she dug through bins and piles, sorting plastic from metal. Sometimes, she found small treasures, an old book with half the pages intact, a broken locket, a pen that still wrote. She kept them all in a small box under her bed. To her, they were reminders that even discarded things still had value. One morning, as she bent over a heap near the bus stop, a car slowed beside her. The window rolled down and a well-dressed woman leaned out. "Hey, girl," she called sharply. "Don't make a mess there. The smell is terrible." Lena looked up. "I'm just cleaning, madam." "Cleaning? This isn't your job," the woman snapped. "People like you should do this somewhere else." The car sped off, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Lena stood still for a long moment, her heart sinking. Then she picked up her cart again and whispered under her breath, "Maybe it is my job for now." At school, her teacher noticed her exhaustion. "Lena," she said one afternoon, "you've been falling asleep in class. Are you okay?" Lena nodded quickly. "I'm fine, miss." "Are you sure? You're a good student. I don't want you to lose focus." I'll do better, she promised. But better was hard to reach when the nights were spent cleaning, cooking, and worrying. Sometimes, after finishing her homework, she sat outside under the small patch of sky visible between the rooftops. She loved watching the stars, though they were faint here. They reminded her of things beyond her world, things pure and distant. Her friend from the neighborhood, a boy named Rafi, often joined her. "You're always staring up there," he'd tease. "Think one of those stars will drop down and take you away?" She laughed softly. "No, I just like thinking they can see everything, every good thing people do, even when others don't." Rafi smiled. "If that's true, those stars must know you better than anyone." She shook her head, embarrassed. I want to be someone who matters." "You already matter," he said quietly. But Lena didn't believe him. Not yet. Weeks passed in the same rhythm. Work, school, care, exhaustion. But through it all, she carried that invisible thread of hope, her promise. Every morning before leaving, she'd whisper to mirror, "Someday," and every night before sleeping, she'd repeat it again as if trying to convince the universe. One evening, as she returned home, she noticed her mother sitting outside with a piece of paper in her hands. "What's that?" Lena asked, setting her bag down. Her mother smiled faintly. "A letter from the hospital. They're looking for trainee helpers. Part-time work. Maybe you could apply." Lena's heart skipped. "A hospital job? Really?" Her mother nodded. "It doesn't pay much, but it's a start. You could learn things, maybe even from real nurses." That night, Lena could barely sleep. She imagined herself wearing a clean uniform, helping patients, learning, earning respect. She imagined people looking at her and not seeing a garbage girl, but someone with purpose. She filled out the form the next morning, her handwriting careful and neat. It asked for references and qualifications she didn't have, but she sent it anyway. Days passed. No reply came. Still, she waited, checking the post office every week, asking neighbors if a letter had arrived. Nothing. She almost stopped hoping, until one evening. She returned home to find her mother sitting upright, smiling wide for the first time in weeks. "Lena," she cried. "They called. The hospital called." Lena froze. "What?" "They want to meet you tomorrow morning for an interview." Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the table. "Me? Are you sure?" "Yes, my love. They said your name clearly." Lena sat down, breathless. It felt unreal, like something fragile that could shatter if she moved too fast. That night, she washed her clothes carefully and ironed them as best she could. Her mother helped her braid her hair neatly, her weak fingers trembling with pride. "You'll do fine," she whispered. "You were born to help people." The next morning, Lena stood outside the hospital gates, her heart pounding. She could see doctors walking briskly, nurses chatting, patients waiting in long lines. The smell of disinfectant mixed with something that felt like hope. She stepped inside, clutching her file. The receptionist looked her up and down. "You're here for the helper interview?" "Yes, ma'am." "Wait there," the woman said, pointing to a bench. "You'll be called." Lena sat quietly, her hands clasped around her. Others waited too, young men and women in cleaner clothes, holding resumes printed on crisp paper. She felt small among them, but she kept whispering to herself, "Someday they'll see me for who I am." When her turn came, the man behind the desk glanced through her form. "You studied till 10th grade?" "Yes, sir." "And you collect recyclables?" "Yes, sir." He looked up briefly, his brows raised. "That's unusual." Lena swallowed. "I just need a chance. I can work hard." He leaned back. "We'll see. You can start on trial next week." Lena blinked. "Really?" "Yes. You'll assist in cleaning wards. Basic work." She didn't care what it was. Her eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you." That evening, when she told her mother, the older woman cried softly. "I told you," she whispered. "You were meant for more." It was the happiest night they'd had in a long time. Over the next few days, Lena worked with renewed energy. She collected bottles faster, studied harder, and smiled more often. For the first time, the nickname Garbage Girl didn't sting as much. It was still cruel, but it was behind her now. She had a new name waiting for her. But life, as always, had its own cruel timing. A week before her first day at the hospital, her mother's condition worsened suddenly. The coughs became deeper, her fever higher. The small medicine box emptied too fast. Lena ran from shop to shop, searching for the right tablets, but prices had risen. She sold her hairpin, her old-school bag, everything she could spare. That night, as thunder cracked in the distance, she sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand. "It's okay, Mama," she whispered. "I'll fix everything. Just hold on." Her mother's eyes fluttered open weakly. "You always say that," she murmured. "And somehow you always do." But Lena didn't sleep. She sat there till dawn, listening to the rain begin outside. The sky was dark and heavy that morning, the streets filled with water. And as Lena looked out through the doorway of the gathering storm, she felt something shift deep inside her, a strange pull of fate, like the world was holding its breath. Something was coming. She didn't know it yet, but this storm would change her life forever. The afternoon sun burned through the haze, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement where Lena worked. Her cart rattled as she pushed it toward the school's back alley, the one lined with overfilled bins and torn posters fluttering in the wind. The laughter of students drifted faintly from beyond the gate, a sound she'd learned to ignore. Or at least, she tried to. She knelt by the sidewalk, sorting bottles from paper, her fingers blackened by dirt, the smell of spoiled food mixed with the sharp scent of rain-soaked metal. Then, a voice cut through the air, mocking, familiar. "Well, look who's back. Our very own Garbage Girl." Her body froze. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to see 3 students standing nearby. Boys from her school, uniforms crisp and untorn, their sneakers spotless against the dust. One of them raised his phone, the red recording light blinking. "Hey, Lena, give us your best pose." Another jeered, tossing an empty juice box toward her. It landed near her foot. "You missed a spot." They laughed, loud and careless, as if cruelty were entertainment. Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear in her ears, but her hands kept working. One wrapper, one crushed bottle at a time. She refused to look at them. "Smile for the camera, Garbage Girl," the tallest one shouted, stepping closer. He dropped a bag of chips right in front of her, spilling crumbs everywhere. "Come on, it's for your fans." The others howled with laughter. Lena's hands trembled as she picked up the chips one by one. Her throat felt tight, like every breath came with splinters. She wanted to scream, to tell them what she was saving for, what her mother was suffering through, what it cost to live like this. But instead, she swallowed the words. "Why don't you fight back?" one of them teased. Too scared. Lena looked up then, just for a moment. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her voice was calm, steady, almost eerie in its softness. "One day," she whispered, "you'll regret this." They didn't hear the quiet power in her tone. They laughed even harder. When she finally walked away, their laughter followed her like smoke. That night, Lena sat by her mother's bedside, her knees pulled to her chest. The flickering candlelight cast tired shadows across the room. Her mother's coughs came in short bursts, and each one stabbed through her heart. "Lena," her mother murmured weakly, "you're quiet tonight." "I'm just tired, Mama," she said, forcing a smile. It was a long day. Her mother reached out a trembling hand and touched her cheek. "Don't let the world harden you, my girl. People's laughter can't define your worth." Lena nodded, but her chest ached. When her mother fell asleep, she turned toward the cracked window and watched the city lights flicker in the distance. Her reflection stared back from the glass, small, tired, but still burning with something fierce. She folded her hands together and whispered into the night, "God, I don't want revenge. I just want strength." Outside, thunder rumbled softly across the horizon. The wind picked up, rattling the tin roof. Somewhere, fate had already begun to stir. Quietly, invisibly, setting into motion a night that would soon test the limits of her courage. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the narrow streets into winding rivers of mud and trash. The city, usually bursting with noise, now echoed only with thunder and the hiss of water on tin roofs. Lena pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders as she pushed her dented cart through the flooding alleys. The wheels stuck in the mud, squeaking with every step. Each drop stung against her face like cold needles, but she didn't stop. She couldn't afford to. The bottles she collected today would buy her mother's medicine tomorrow. Just a little more, she whispered to herself, her breath visible in the cold air. Just a little more. Lightning tore across the sky, followed by a crack of thunder that shook the ground beneath her. She turned the corner toward an old alley she rarely used, and froze. Amid the noise of the storm, a faint sound reached her ears. At first, she thought it was the wind, but then she heard it again. "Help, please." It was a man's voice, weak, trembling, almost drowned out by the rain. Her heart jumped. She scanned the alley, squinting to the downpour, until her eyes caught movement near a collapsed wall. Part of an old brick structure had caved in, leaving a pile of debris and twisted metal. "Hello? Can you hear me?" she shouted, splashing through the water. A faint groan answered. Lena rushed forward. Beneath the rubble lay an elderly man, his arm pinned under a heavy wooden beam. His clothes were soaked, his face pale and streaked with mud. Blood mixed with rainwater ran down his temple. "Please, help!" he gasped, eyes fluttering open. Without hesitation, Lena dropped her shawl and threw herself to the ground beside him. She gripped the edge of the beam, tried to lift it, but it barely moved. Her fingers slipped, nails breaking against the rough wood. "It's okay," she said, panting. "I'm not leaving you. Hold on." She dug through the rubble piece by piece. Broken bricks, glass shards, splintered boards. Her hands bled, her arms trembled, but she kept going. Rain poured down her back, soaking her clothes until they clung to her skin. "Stay with me, please," she pleaded, her voice shaking. The man coughed weakly. Why are you doing this?" "Because someone has to," she said without looking up. Finally, with a desperate cry, she managed to shift the beam just enough to pull him free. He collapsed against her shoulder, barely conscious. Lena wrapped her arms around him and dragged him toward an old bus stop nearby, the only shelter in sight. She tore a piece of her shawl and pressed it to his bleeding head. "You'll be okay," she whispered. "Just stay awake." The man's lips moved as if to speak, but no sound came out. His eyes closed. Lena stayed until his breathing steadied. Then she stood, trembling and soaked to the bone. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. She knew someone would find him soon. She didn't wait for thanks. She never did. Before anyone arrived, she slipped back into the storm, pushing her empty cart through the rain. The streets swallowed her whole, as if she had never been there at all. That night, as she returned home, her mother's cough echoed softly from the corner. Lena smiled faintly through her exhaustion, her hands raw and blistered. She didn't tell her mother what had happened. Some things didn't need words. Outside, the storm finally began to fade, leaving the city washed clean under the pale moonlight. Morning arrived quietly after the storm, but the city was anything but calm. The streets buzzed with curiosity and rumor, and the usual chatter vendors had turned into excited whispers. Newspapers hit doorsteps with bold black letters that caught every eye. "Unknown girl saves elderly man during storm." The story spread like wildfire. People replayed shaky phone footage of rescue teams arriving at the alley, finding an old man half conscious but alive. Beside him, they found only a torn piece of a faded shawl, nothing else. No footprints, no name, no trace. At first, it was just another headline. But that changed when people learned who the man was. The next day, every channel switched to a live press conference. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the glare of cameras as the city's mayor, a man known for his strict demeanor, stepped onto the podium. But today, he looked different. His voice trembled, and his eyes were red-rimmed with emotion. "My father," he began, his hand gripping the edge of the stand, "was caught under a collapsed wall during the storm. The doctors say He would not have survived another 10 minutes if not for the actions of one person, a young girl who risked her life to save him and then disappeared. The crowd fell silent. Even the hum of cameras seemed to pause. The mayor exhaled shakily, lowering his gaze for a moment before continuing. Whoever you are, if you can hear me, I owe you more than I can ever repay. You didn't just save my father. You reminded this city what humanity looks like. If anyone knows who she is, please help us find her. His voice broke on the last word. Behind him, an image of his father, frail but smiling from his hospital bed, appeared on the screen. The story became the heartbeat of the city. Newspapers called her the mystery hero. TV anchors debated who she might be. Some claimed she was a nurse who vanished after the rescue. Others said she was a ghost sent by fate. Hashtags flooded social media. And somewhere far from the noise, Lena walked quietly down a muddy road, her thin shawl draped over her head to block the sunlight. She stopped outside a small repair shop, where a cracked TV screen played the mayor's broadcast. Dozens of people had gathered to watch. There she goes again, that mayor, talking about his hero. One man muttered, shaking his head. Who'd risk their life for someone in that storm? Lena's heart pounded as the mayor's voice filled the air again. To the girl who saved my father, wherever you are, you're the pride of the city. She froze. For a long moment, she couldn't move. The faces of those around her blurred as her eyes filled with tears. Her heart wanted to burst with emotion, but her throat wouldn't let her speak. She turned away quickly, her pulse racing. No one could know. Not yet. Back at home, her mother was sitting up, wrapped in a blanket, a small smile playing on her lips. "Did you hear?" she asked, eyes shining. "A brave girl saved a man last night. The mayor himself spoke about her." Lena set her bag down quietly. "Yes, I heard." Her mother coughed softly, then laughed. "If I ever meet her, I'll thank her myself. There's still kindness in this world. Lena, don't you think?" Lena forced a smile and nodded, but her chest ached. "Yes, Mama, there is." That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the wind rattle the walls. The candle beside her burned low, flickering shadows across the cracked ceiling. Part of her wanted to tell someone, just one person, that it was her, that she wasn't just garbage girl, that for once she had done something that mattered. But she knew what would happen if people found out. The same kids who laughed at her would twist the story, turn her bravery into mockery. They'd say she did it for attention. So she stayed quiet. But outside her little home, the world was changing. The mayor had ordered a citywide search. Posters appeared on walls with the headline, "Help us find the girl who saved a life." Police visited hospitals, orphanages, and schools asking questions. News vans parked at corners, waiting for a glimpse of the mysterious rescuer. "Someone out there knows," one reporter said on air, "and we won't rest until we find her." Lena tried to avoid the noise, but found her anyway. Everywhere she went, people spoke about the girl with reverence. Kids at her school whispered about her between classes, inventing wild stories. "I bet she's from another city," one said. "No, she's from here. My cousin's friend saw her, said she was wearing a red scarf." "Who cares? She's probably rich. No one poor would do that." Lena sat silently at her desk, her fingers clenched together. The irony was sharp enough to hurt. At lunchtime, she walked to her usual spot behind the schoolyard, away from everyone. The wind carried bits of laughter from afar, the same kind that once tore her apart. But now, the sound didn't sting as much. She knew something they didn't. She looked at her hands, small, scarred, still marked from that night, and whispered under her breath, "Maybe someday the truth will come." Still, part of her feared it. She wasn't ready for attention. She wasn't ready to be seen. But fate wasn't asking for her permission. A few days later, while she was sorting bottles near the market, a pair of sleek black cars pulled up beside the road. They didn't belong there. Too clean, too quiet for a place like that. People stopped and stared as uniformed men stepped out, scanning the narrow street. One of them held a photograph. "Excuse me," he asked the shopkeeper, "Have you seen this girl?" The man frowned. "Who's asking?" "City officials," came the answer. "The mayor sent us." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She was crouched behind a row of trash bins, her fingers frozen around a plastic bottle. Her pulse hammered so loudly she was afraid they'd hear it. She peeked over the rim of the bin and saw the photo. It was blurry, taken from a distance during the storm. But it was her small figure, half hidden by rain, dragging the old man to safety. Her breath caught in her throat. The men split up, showing the photo around. Curious onlookers gathered, whispering excitedly, "That's the hero girl, isn't it? The mayor's still searching? Imagine if she lived around here." Lena slowly backed away, her hands trembling. She turned into the narrow alley that led to her shack and broke into a run. By the time she reached home, she could barely breathe. Her mother looked up in alarm. "Lena, what's wrong?" "Nothing, Mama," she lied quickly, forcing a smile. "Just work." But her mother wasn't convinced. "You're shaking. Tell me." Before she could finish, the sound of engines echoed down the street. Lena froze. She stepped toward the window and pulled aside the curtain just enough to see outside. The convoy of black cars had turned into her neighborhood. Men stepped out again, talking into radios, scanning every doorway. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Mama," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Whatever happens, stay inside." Her mother frowned. "Lena, you're scaring me." But Lena didn't answer. She took a deep breath, straightened her torn shawl, and stepped outside just as one of the men spotted her. "Wait!" he called, holding up the photo. "It's her." Every head in the alley turned toward her. The rain had started again, soft at first, then heavier, just like that night. And as she stood there, soaked to the skin, facing the men who had come searching, Lena realized that the secret she carried was no longer hers to keep. The morning began like any other. Gray sky, muddy streets, and a familiar clatter of bottles in Lena's cart. The storm from the previous night had left puddles everywhere, reflecting the dull light that struggled to break through the clouds. Inside their small shack, the air smelled faintly of damp clothes and boiled tea. Lena's mother sat on a mattress, sewing an old scarf while Lena sorted through the recyclables she'd gathered. "Careful with those glass bottles, love," her mother murmured. Without looking up, "They'll cut your fingers again." "I'm being careful, Mama," Lena said softly, arranging the bottles into neat rows. Her hands still bore faint scars from the night of the storm, small reminders of what she'd done, though no one knew. Outside, the street was quiet, too quiet. The usual chatter of vendors hadn't started yet, and the sound of a single crow echoed through the alley. Lena paused for a moment, listening. Then 3 firm knocks rattled the wooden door. "Knock! Knock! Knock!" Her mother's hand froze mid-stitch. "Lena," she said slowly, her voice uneasy. "Someone's here." Lena frowned. At this hour? She wiped her hands on her shawl and stood. Her heart began to thump, not fast, but deep, steady, like the drum of something inevitable. She stepped toward the door and pulled it open. The moment felt like time itself stopped. Standing there, tall and solemn, raincoat still dripping from the mist outside, was the mayor himself. His polished shoes were splattered with mud from the unpaved street, but he didn't seem to care. Behind him stood 2 aides holding umbrellas, and at the far end of the alley, several black cars gleamed under the cloudy sky. Lena's breath caught. Her first instinct was to step back, but her feet refused to move. The mayor looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to convince himself she was real. His eyes softened, disbelief giving way to something deeper, gratitude, awe. "It's you," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "You're the girl who saved my father." The words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. Lena's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mother, still seated on the mattress, clutched the edge of her blanket. "Lena, what's he talking about?" Outside, the neighbors had begun to gather, drawn by the sight of the convoy parked at the end of the alley. Faces peeked from behind doors and windows. Children whispered, eyes wide. The mayor stepped closer. "Do you remember that night? The storm? The old man trapped under the wall." Lena swallowed hard. Her voice came out in a whisper. I just did what anyone would do. The mayor shook his head slowly. No, he said, his tone firm but kind. You did what many wouldn't. You risked your life for a stranger, for my father. His words carried through the alley, and a hush fell over the crowd outside. The garbage girl was suddenly the center of attention, not mockery, but wonder. Lena's mother pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. My daughter, she whispered, her voice breaking. Lena looked down, her cheeks flushed with both pride and shame. I didn't want anyone to know, she murmured. It wasn't about being thanked. The mayor smiled faintly. That's exactly why the world should know your name. He turned slightly toward his aides. One of them stepped forward, holding a small velvet box. The mayor took it, opened it, and revealed a gold medal engraved with the city seal. For bravery and humanity, he said softly. On behalf of the entire city, Lena, I want to thank you. Lena stared at the medal, stunned. For a second, she thought she might be dreaming. The crowd outside erupted into murmurs, astonishment, admiration. The same people who once laughed at her name now stood in silence, many with tears in their eyes. The words garbage girl no longer echoed as insult, but as irony. The mayor continued, his voice warm but resolute. You reminded us all that greatness doesn't come from wealth or power. It comes from compassion, from courage. Lena's hands trembled as she accepted the medal. It felt strange, heavy, not just in weight, but in meaning. Her eyes stung with unshed tears. Her mother stood and approached, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. My child, she whispered, holding Lena's face in her hands. I always told you your heart would change the world. I just didn't know it would happen like this. The mayor smiled softly. If you're willing, he said, I'd like you to join me at City Hall tomorrow. There will be a ceremony in your honor. Ceremony? Lena echoed, almost incredulous. Yes, he nodded. The city should see who their hero truly is. Lena hesitated. Her gaze flicked toward the crowd. The same neighbors who once avoided her, who looked past her as if she didn't exist. Now, their eyes were filled with something she had never seen before, respect. She looked back at the mayor, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll come, he said gently. After a pause, she nodded. I'll come. The mayor smiled, relief softening his features. Then I'll see you tomorrow, Lena. As he turned to leave, the crowd slowly parted, making way for him and his aides. But before he stepped into his car, he glanced back one last time. You've given this city hope, he said. Don't ever forget that. Then he was gone. The engines hummed, the convoy rolled away, and the alley fell silent again. Lena stood in the doorway, the metal gleaming faintly in her hand. Her mother embraced her tightly, whispering, See? God saw everything you did. He never forgets kindness. Lena closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. For the first time in a long while, the heaviness in her heart lifted. But beneath that peace lingered something else, an unshakable tension. Because even as the neighborhood celebrated her name, as people rushed to congratulate her and reporters began to flood the area, Lena noticed a familiar face among the crowd. One of the boys from her school, the same ones who once mocked her. He stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, eyes wide with shock. And in that instant, Lena realized tomorrow's ceremony wouldn't just be about honor. It would be a reckoning. The morning of the ceremony dawned golden and clear, as if the heavens themselves were washing the city clean of its past cruelty. Lena stood before a cracked mirror in their small one-room home, trying to smooth her hair with trembling fingers. Her mother gently placed a worn blue ribbon in her hair, the same ribbon Lena had worn as a child on her first day at school, before life had taught her what rejection felt like. Are you ready, my daughter? Her mother asked softly, voice quivering with pride and disbelief. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. I don't know, Mama. I've never been ready for anything, but maybe today I'll try to be. Outside, the streets were lined with faces, some curious, some joyous, some ashamed. Children waved small white flags with her name written in bold blue letters. Lena, the girl who saved a life. The same alley where she once swept trash was now decorated with banners and fresh flowers. The people who had turned away from her now turned toward her, eager to catch a glimpse of the girl they once ignored. As the mayor's car arrived, a hush spread through the crowd. He stepped out, his expression solemn yet warm. The old man she had saved was beside him, standing proudly with a cane, tears glistening in his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor began, his voice steady, echoing across the gathered crowd and into the hearts of everyone listening. "We gather today not to honor wealth nor fame, but courage, the kind that hides behind dirt-stained hands and a humble heart." The audience erupted in applause. Lena blinked back tears, clutching her mother's hand tightly as they guided her toward the stage. Her knees felt weak, but her spirit stood tall. As she stepped into bright light, cameras flashed, those same cameras that once filmed her humiliation. For a brief second, memories flooded her mind. The laughter of the students, the sting of shame, the silent nights of prayer. But today, those memories felt lighter, like ashes carried away by wind. The mayor turned to her and said softly, "You didn't just save a man that night. You reminded us what humanity truly means." Then he lifted a golden envelope and continued aloud, in recognition of her bravery and strength, "The city awards Lena a full scholarship to continue her studies. And from this day forward, we begin a new campaign, Clean City Kind Hearts, inspired by her story." A thunderous applause filled the air. Some of the students who once mocked her now stood in front, their eyes lowered in remorse. One of them, a girl with a trembling voice, stepped forward holding a small banner. "Lena," she said softly, her voice cracking, we're sorry. We didn't see you for who you were." Lena smiled gently, the pain of her past dissolving into compassion. "It's okay," she replied. "Sometimes it takes a storm to wash the dirt off hearts." Her mother wept quietly in the front row, hands clasped in prayer. The mayor's father approached Lena, holding out a small silver bracelet. "This belonged to my late wife," he said. "She always believed kindness was the rarest jewel. Now I want you to have it." Lena's eyes shimmered. She bowed her head respectfully, whispering, "Thank you, but the real jewel is the chance to start again." As she looked out at the sea of faces, faces that once looked down on her but now looked up, she felt something deep within her shift. The weight she had carried for years was gone. She stepped closer to the microphone. The world fell silent. "You can call me anything you want," she said softly, her voice steady yet full of grace. "Garbage girl, cleaner, nobody, it doesn't matter anymore, because I'll always be proud of what these hands have done." Her words hung in the air like sunlight breaking through clouds. The crowd erupted into applause so loud that even the birds took flight. Reporters wiped their eyes. Strangers cheered her name. Her mother pressed her hands to her heart. For the first time in her life, Lena didn't want to hide. She lifted her hands. The same scarred, tired hands had picked up garbage, rescued a man, and built dignity out of dust, and waved. The cameras flashed, not to humiliate her, but to honor her. That night, as she walked home through the same streets where she once been to pick up trash, the wind carried whispers of her name. Some called her an angel, others a hero. But Lena only smiled and looked up at the stars, whispering, "Thank you, God, for listening." Her mother walked beside her, quiet but glowing with pride. "The world finally sees you, Lena," she murmured. Lena shook her head gently. "No, Mama, the world finally sees what you taught me, to keep my heart clean, even when the world is dirty." They reached home, and for a long moment, Lena just stood at the doorway, watching the flickering city lights in the distance. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end, because redemption wasn't about being seen, it was about becoming. And as thunder rolled softly in the horizon, she smiled faintly. The wind rustled through the slums, carrying the sound of children chanting her name. The city had found its hero, but destiny wasn't done with Lena yet. The city woke up to banners fluttering in the wind. Lena, the girl who saved a life. Everywhere she looked, her name was painted across walls that once carried only insults. The same students who had mocked her now stood by the stage, holding signs with her name. Lena could hardly believe it. Just days ago, she was invisible. Now, the city waited to hear her voice. Her mother fixed her worn shawl before the ceremony and whispered, "You see, my daughter, even flowers can grow through dust." The mayor stepped forward, voice trembling. "Lena didn't just save my father. She reminded us what real courage looks like." A thunder of applause followed. The old man she had rescued stood nearby, smiling through tears. Then came the words that changed everything. A full scholarship granted to Lena in honor of her bravery. Gasps filled the crowd. The cameras turned toward her, the same cameras that once captured her humiliation. She took a slow breath, eyes glistening. "You can call me anything you want," she said softly, her voice steady but full of heart. "Garbage girl, cleaner, anything. But I'll always be proud of what these hands have done." The crowd erupted. Some students cried. Her mother wept silently in the front row. For the first time, Lena didn't bow her head in shame. She stood tall, smiling through her tears. That night, as she walked home, the city lights shimmered around her. The same streets that once laughed at her now whispered her name like a blessing. She looked at her hands and smiled. "Maybe," she whispered to herself, "from garbage, gold really can rise."